up and do an awesome performance. I'm really looking forward to it, so I'm sure you guys are as well. So please give a big hand to Kabuki Kaito.
Try to throw me off. Make it something that'll be, I can answer kind of quickly. Don't give me a random stuff. It's like a crazy Rorschach for me. So we'll do it. I'm going to go as quick as I can, try to get as many answers as I can. Let's start. Go. Awesome. There was a lot of fun telling Lucy Christian with 2 moms who had 2 new kids. Anyways, see, next question.
Killing is free.
That's right. I am Kira.
Different counties.
3 different hair colors. 3 different, filming.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, it's up to you guys, I don't care.
I mean, what we're going to talk about? Sorry.
Are you talking about?
Oh, I didn't know whether you're allowed filming.
Filming us.
Oh, I'm cool with that.
That's
It's
a lot of filming,
plus
right?
again, I said that 18 plus that memorable,
I didn't know it's, I always mention it because I don't know about you guys, but on panels I've said a whole lot of that.
Eric, you better be at the rave tonight. I have a song just for your daughter. I have a song called Minion Bounce. Just for her. Like, it's a total Minion song. It's actually pretty rockin'.
That's pretty cool.
So I have a question. The opportunities here.
I didn't know
Like,
something
you
about the
probably
media.
have some experiences that would sort of translate from one location to another, right?
Yeah, I have some friends that do theater in town, so I know.
And you probably know that Winnipeg is renowned for
The
being
French
a great
Festival's
theater
going on,
community.
the French
Yeah.
Festival's going on right now as we speak, yeah.
And FemFest in September, we were plugging that yesterday, right? Yeah.
This is a pretty great town for stuff like that.
Yeah, very culturally active. And I was just at the Museum of Human Rights on my little break this afternoon. Really impressive. Beautiful content, very profoundly moving content, as you know, and the architecture's amazing. And you guys must be really proud of that. It's a beautiful institution.
It's been building it forever. I remember when they were first starting to build it, I'm like, what's that gonna do? So it's cool that I haven't been yet, so it's cool. Recommend.
Who wants to take?
Should we introduce ourselves and say like what we do? Like,
Sure.
yeah.
Let's do.
because we're all biologists. No, I'm
I'm a
kidding.
farmer.
I'm just a simple country farmer.
My name is Aaron Vale, and I guess clearly voice actor, being that this is that panel for that thing.
What else do you do within the entertainment industry?
Actually, I'm also a writer
Thank you.
and a producer, director, do all of those other things. Because what you find out once you go into the entertainment business is the way that you sustain yourself, the way that you make a living is you diversify. Every person in this business learns that sooner or later. Those that learn it later aren't in the entertainment business anymore. Those that learn it sooner are. It's very simple.
You also do on-camera acting.
I was gonna say, you
Yeah.
directed the film.
Yeah, I do a lot of different kinds of acting. Most of my income actually comes from commercial voiceover work. That's most of my voiceover work. And yes, I know what.
You produce.
Yeah. I did, and yeah, recently y'all probably heard of the film over the past couple of days, the film Chariot that I wrote and produced that stars Mr. Haynes.
I'm doing my Angry Eric impression the whole time.
Yeah. The
I
whole.
told my agent that, and she goes, oh my God, you are.
Do you have the same agent?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Both very long.
But very long.
Yeah.
So that's the joke she got.
Yeah, oh no, she was like, oh, that is Angry Eric. That, No, I'm with the same agency as him, and I'm the same way. Like, we both, commercial is our main source of income.
Yeah.
And it's a great, I really love that part of the job. It's fun, but then yeah, past that, on camera, I've directed anime. I was a professional, all I did was theater for like an hour long when I was at college.
I never did, but everyone, I mean, you won some awards around town.
Mhm.
Number one person that people thought was great or
I
something.
knew when you started that you didn't know the name of the
No,
movie.
the award I won was the critic had a crush on me and was way inappropriate about it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude, she was lecherous.
I would say that
Have I known
most
them?
awards are that award.
I like the way you look, award. Oh my God, see, this is why I don't want things. Honesty.
Yeah, honestly.
What is she gonna do? Another theater, anyone? Because I like dinner and sunsets. Theater people get that joke. So I do those things. How do you, Greg?
No, I'm kidding. I'm a joker. My name's Greg Ayers. I've been doing voiceover for about 15 years now. I'm just blessed with a weird voice. I hated it as a kid, but and I kind of sometimes get mad because I always play little whiny kids, but I've come to the realization that there's no shortage of little whiny kids in anime, so I'm still working 15 years later, so I can't whine about that. I've done a lot of stuff in the anime industry. I've also done some script writing. I actually moved into the production marketing side. I was doing product writing, which are those horrible episode summaries you have to read. But here's the worst part about it, you can't spoil anything. So they're like 3 totally abject sentences that can't give away anything about the episode. But I love the companies that I work for, and I've gotten involved in a lot of different aspects of production. But because I love anime as much as I did, I've backed away from doing other stuff in anime, because if you eat, sleep, and breathe anime all day, Jigglypuff. And I don't care about, always care about Jigglypuff. So, always care about, never mind. Anyway, yeah, I have the advantage / curse of working for multiple studios, which sometimes they don't like each other and I get caught in crossfires, but I just like working. I've been acting since I was a little kid, like Ian, I've done a lot of theater. And now I've even gotten involved in running conventions. There are 3 large conventions in the US that I help run, where I'm also a guest, where I also DJ, so I'm officially crazy too, but yeah, so that's what I do. And get into trouble. I get into a lot of trouble too, but that's my second job, so.
And you tell wicked stories too. You do. I'm Terry Hawks, and I live in Toronto. I grew up in Calgary, and I started doing community theater, and I was singing in dancing in Calgary, and it was a great training ground. We had scholarships, which was great for me because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to have afforded the School of Fine Arts. From there, I was offered a job at the Citadel Theatre in Edmonton, and I kind of took a detour from what I thought might be a law career and decided, oh, I think I'll try this theater thing. So I started working in Alberta theater, and then I moved to Toronto with hopes of doing film and television. And I did something that probably would be foreign to most of you in this room. I arrived in Toronto, and I opened up the phone book. And I thought, who should I phone?
Phone books were these things.
They're made from paper.
Yeah, it's like a giant contacts list on paper.
That's right.
Paper, good question.
So it kind of dates me, but it kind of relates to what I would hope to convey to you today, which is I didn't know the ethical professional in this industry. How to get started. So I looked for agencies and I looked for film companies, and I just called them. Said, I'd like to meet you, I'm in town, this is what I've done. And I did. And out of that I got an agent, and that led to commercials, and then it led to voice work, and some of my earlier voice work, like Care Bears and that kind of stuff. And then I kept continuing my education, because I just thought that was how I was going to improve. So I moved to New York, and I studied with an acting teacher there named Uta Hagen. And then I started writing. And then I decided I might want to have a family one day, and I wasn't making a lot of money in the theater, so I moved to LA, and I got some television work on a show called General Hospital, and continued to study acting, so I studied Meisner technique there, and then I went to UCLA for a master's in playwriting, because I wanted to write and direct, and then I started writing and directing, and then I moved back to Toronto to be with that guy, who is now my partner in life, and we have two 15-year-olds. So life kind of took a 180-degree turn. So what I've done since I've had my kids, so I've been writing, I've written for animation, and Green Gables, and directed Flying Milo Junior High for the 2 seasons it was on, and it's my way. I was really fun about it. I really like that show. And then as a mother, I found it a little harder to get back to the kind of career that I had before. My husband travels a lot. So I took kind of a wacky route back to structure in my life, and I re-enrolled in grad school. So that's where I am now. And I'm writing, I continue to write stories, usually with strong female characters as the propelling force of the story for theater right now, but I think that I'll get back to that and applying that to the creative writing that I'm doing. So that's where I'm at today, and I'm here with you, and I get to talk about all these great ideas.
So if we look starstruck when she said the words Uta Hagen, probably one of the Bibles of acting is a book called Respect for Acting by Uta Hagen, the Bible of most actors. So when you said that, all of us went.
I'm not kidding. This is no joke. When I was leaving my house, God, everything's running together. Thursday, I was packing up my house, and because of the way my family is, and everyone in my house is in theater, and I've got a theater major in my house right now because he's on summer break. I'm going around my house, and there's just books everywhere, and I'm flipping it over, and 3 books were Uta Hagen. One of them was Respect for Acting.
I walk past that book every day on the way out the door, and so I never not see that book. That's why I was.
Yeah, I felt really lucky to have studied with her. And I should say, if any of you are taking this, Carol Rosenfeld, who now runs the Institute at the HB Studio in New York, is probably equally as fabulous if any of you are really serious about pursuing acting. Carol Rosenfeld, she's awesome.
Yeah, I'm not that good.
Well, I can take some of her points if we want. Something you brought up was you went into the phone book. Each of us, when we found out like how we're going to get into acting, it was kind of a process. You had to know people, and you had to kind of find where the scenes is. You guys can Google it. If you want to know where the agents are in your town, like we would have to track that down. We have to find the backstage and all that kind of stuff. You can Google it. If you want to find out if there's
Your accent,
you can Google it. Yeah, like that's like it's an amazing thing that like right now if you said, man, I want to find out if there is an agency in town. I mean, if I find out if there's an agency in Winnipeg, and you can do that. We did not have that luxury, and so like if all of this is at your fingertips, 90% of what we're going to tell you today, happily tell you, you can find online, and that's a blessing. do the research. It's amazing what you'll find out there, available just free now. You can download Respect for Acting
Yeah, you
for
can
free
download
somewhere.
there's an ebook of it, there is one.
And you can probably find something of like Ian McKellen walking you through the entire thing.
Oh, my brother's, my brother, most of you guys have met, he used to come here a lot, Chris Ayers, he's a voice actor and also a director, he's also a theater director, he's been on Broadway. He is a big improv person, and he downloads all the books on Second City, and they're all e-books now, so you can get all of that, all of those books that you used to have to find a theater bookstore, that smelled like old books, find those books.
Just step back first for a second, I would suggest that what Ian is suggesting with regard to researching agents, before you do that, you could use the research to check out workshops and schooling opportunities, educational opportunities, community theater. My suggestion, and I'm sure you guys would agree based on your backgrounds, is anything and everything that you can take to learn about acting, to learn about writing, to learn about directing, because it all plays together, and it's all experience. Stage time, backstage, doing props, doing design for sets, whatever you can do it, because it's a learning opportunity, and it will lead to new things, new educational experiences, but also new connections. So there are a lot of you in this room, and I'm going to suggest maybe at the end of this, you kind of congregate out in the foyer or something, exchange emails or Facebook pages, whatever, and build your own community, and exchange information and create opportunities for yourselves. So the education and the connections, I think, are key everywhere.
I love that because I used to tell people one of the great things about theater is theater, especially community theaters, which get a bad rap sometimes. If you want to become involved in anything, I'd say theater people are like, a band of brothers. If you say, hey, I want to get involved, somebody's going to hand you a paintbrush and go, that flat needs to be painted. There's always somebody that needs an usher, or somebody that needs to focus lights or strike a set. And learning and I always say that getting involved with helping someone, they're more likely to help you in the long run. And so becoming involved with the theater and becoming aware of who casts shows and how their audition process works is your foot in the door. It's also a great way to make a lot of friends too at the same time. And that's kind of the neat thing about it. As you start to meet more of us, you see how weirdly connected we are. Strangely, like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon to each other. I might not have worked with somebody I worked with on stage, worked with somebody else who worked with Ian, and we're all weirdly connected. So.
But that's you'll hear us talking a whole lot about theater up here, and because that's acting, that's where acting started, and that's where acting still starts. A lot of people are in this room right now because they want to be voice actors, but there's the key word in there is actor. You start at acting. Nobody just is a voice actor and that's it. Anybody who's a successful voice actor is an actor, and I promise you, they're not only voice acting for anime and that's it, and that's the only thing they do, and they are a success in life. They're acting elsewhere. And
the way I like to tell people, I said, actors love acting. We just like acting. But to say we only want to, it's like, I want to be a car salesman, but I only want to sell midnight blue Dodge Darts.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I heard someone say both.
I got one. Go ahead.
Fine.
I didn't hear you.
No, it's fine.
I didn't hear you because your voice isn't good enough.
Now we'll talk about how that is a large part of the business later, dealing with rejection. I know, I've heard somebody else say, it's like going to architecture school so you can do doorknobs. I just want to do doorknobs.
I always say that it's like saying that I want to become a chef, but the only thing that I want to learn how to make is spaghetti. That's it, only spaghetti. I'm not going to learn how to cook meat. I'm not going to learn how to cook vegetables. Spaghetti, that's the only thing you're going to get. To hell with everything else. Not even an Alfredo sauce.
Well, and it plays in this, Terry and I were just talking about this before we started. An easier way to say that, like, as easy as to make fun of the fact that in order to even do that, you have to follow your dream. So if your dream is to be a voice actor, then the first step is to take acting lessons. And I tell everybody to follow their dreams because you might not ever be a voice actor, but you might find out while you're in theater school that you're one hell of a dancer, or that you've got the comedic timing of like Catherine Tate, wish we all had that comedic timing. You might find out that you're good with music. And I think following your dreams and being passionate, which is something Terry and I were talking about, passion is what gives you the energy to do those things, or the curiosity to read a book. But you'll find that the more you study to become a voice actor, there's so many other cooler options out there that you should take all of those.
And can I also say, you might find that you're not connected to the arts. I say to my kids, I would love to see you on stage, not necessarily because I want them to be actors, but because I think it's such a great experience of presenting yourself in front of a group of people. You might be in the IT world, you might need to do a PowerPoint, you might go into academia. It's just a valuable experience you can kind of put in your little toolbox and use for so many things. Ian, you were going to say something?
Oh, I'll speak for Ian.
Ian's trying to hold Mike.
But what I'd like to do is, and I'm sure we'll take questions here in a second, but what I'd like to do first is start off by saying, have we started yet? Okay, so what I'd like to do is, I want to say that, like, bust some myths, bust some myths about what we do. So, nobody up here is rich, we don't live in mansions.
We got rich doing something else.
Yeah, exactly. Actors are not rich. We're scrappers, and we work very, very hard to make our living.
Like even the rich ones, the ones that are like the highest paid, like an accountant would be like, that's adorable.
Yeah, right, exactly. You're not rich as an actor. You may be rich in family, you may be rich with friends, but monetarily speaking, you might make an okay living. But, that's about it. The other thing is, you don't become a very successful actor by being the stereotypical, pompous, full of yourself jerk. That thing that you see, your job is to get out there in the world and experience what life is like. That means do everything and go everywhere and take every opportunity that shows up in front of you. Go to a museum, go out with your friends, hang out in a restaurant, go to a bar, socialize. Now, that doesn't mean you have to drink. If you don't drink, don't drink. But hang out with your friends. Spend time around people and interact with as many different personalities as you can. And file them all away in your head, because you're going to need those if you're going to pretend to be other people for a living. Okay? And that means that you're going to be networking. You're going to be meeting all of those people, and who knows how and when those people are going to come into play in your life. It means that you're going to be that. Also, workshops. Acting workshops are very important. You can pay to take weekend-long workshops where you work with, say, a casting director for the weekend, and they teach you different methods of auditioning. Or you can work with an acting coach for the weekend, where they teach you how to act certain methods for the weekend, or an acting class at, say, a community college, or just actually becoming a theater major and majoring in college. But all of that stuff falls under the umbrella of networking, where you are communing with this big acting community, and you talk about all of the stuff that we're talking about up here in your social circles. It will do nothing but help you. For example, everyone always talks about the fact that I got lucky when I booked the role of Trunks. I networked. There's a big difference. I was in theater. I made a lot of friends in college. One of those friends ended up booking the job of Bulma on Dragon Ball Z. Now, one night when I'm delivering pizzas at a pizza joint, and I had just been suspended from college for failing out because I was a terrible student, and I'm busting my butt to make ends meet. At 1 a.m, Bulma, at the time, walks into the pizza joint. She says, "Eric, I haven't seen you in a long time. How are you?" I said, "I'm doing my best."
Business cards, go make them. It doesn't matter what's on them. It's just something convenient that you can hand out to people. It could just be your name and a phone number.
I would encourage people to be realistic about the title they put on their business card.
Oh, please. All it has to have on all your business card has to
Name
have
and
is
phone
your
number.
name and a phone number. It's just a way for people to keep in touch with you. Or put something cool on there. Put your name in a quote. It's like, it can be something simple like, Eric Vale makes good peanut butter sandwiches, and your number.
Mine is Ian. You like this guy.
See? Something witty like that, but that's how people will remember you. That's networking.
Can I add something to that? So let's assume that you've gone to school, either university or workshops or so on, you've built your skills, and then you're up there networking. Something that a mentor told me I mentioned this morning is an actor's job is looking for work. Yep. That's it. Would you guys agree? Oh, yeah. So one of the things I've done, and I bet you guys have done this too, is I get up in the morning and I start working. I don't wait for my agent to call me. I think about the project that I want to create, or I'm looking for projects that are out there, so I can phone my agent and say, can you get me an audition? And the other thing this mentor said to me is the best time to look for work is when you're working. So if you're in a theater play or a little fringe come, or let me know, I'll get you tickets, that kind of thing. So you're your own promoter, you're your self-promoter, but with something tangible to show them. And how many of you were at the seminar yesterday evening, like the 6 o'clock one on girl culture? Okay, so a few of you. And how many of you were at the 18 plus last night? Oh, of course, that's like the hot ticket of the whole weekend, right? Okay, so I'm asking partly because I don't want to completely repeat myself, because there's lots of room to kind of tell the same stories, and I don't really want to do that. That gets boring for you. So let me just ask you this. So the theme is Q&A, Sailor Moon. We've got about half an hour because the previous seminar went over, but most of you were here for that, so hopefully you got something out of that. I was thinking maybe I could just briefly tell you about how I got involved with the show, if you are curious about that. And then just open it up and answer some answers. My experience tells me that you probably know more about the show than I do, but I'll do my best. How's that? So I mentioned to a few people in one of the seminars that I have an interesting connection with Tracy Moore, who was the original Sailor Moon voice and the original voice director of Sailor Moon. Tracy and I started a community theater together in Calgary, Alberta. We did a show called Little Mary's Sunshine years and years ago. And then we both ended up in Toronto and working in theater and voice work. And one of my first voice jobs was on Care Bears, and I played the roles of Baby Hugs, Square, Bubbles, Toads, goody goody gosh. Thank you. And Shrieky, I will rule the world! And it was fun and a wonderful show to be a part of. And at that point in my life, I was also pursuing acting training at the HB studio in New York City. And I was traveling back to Toronto to do my voice work, which sort of subsidized my work and my life in New York City. And there came a point when I was doing a gig that took me away from Toronto, so they needed to recast those roles. And who do you think they cast in the roles of Shrieky and Baby Hugs? Tracy Moore. And so years later, Sailor Moon comes along, and I'm in Toronto, and I have 2 teenage friends visiting with my partner and me, and we're about to go to the CN Tower and the Hockey Hall of Fame and show them all around, and I get a call from my agent saying there's this series that they're just trying to recast for, it's kind of last minute, but they want you to come in and audition for one of the voices. I said, okay, when is it? Afternoon. And she said, like, now? Can you go now? I said, are you kidding me? I'm just about to walk into the Hockey Hall of Fame, but this is the life of an actor. It's our last minute, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. So I said, fine, I'll go. So I went to the studio and I took along my teenage friends, and they sat there kind of bored out of their mind, but they waited for me. And I auditioned for Nicole Toal, the producer, and at that point the new director, Roland Parliament. And what had happened just prior to that, as some of you may know, is that Tracy Moore, one of the most talented actors I know, and director, had stepped away from Sailor Moon. I understand for logistical reasons. And she'd done 6 episodes of the show. She'd gotten it off to a great start. And sadly, it just didn't work out for her to continue. So I was called in, as I mentioned, at the last minute, did the audition, and Nicole said to me, and I can't do her accent, she's got this when can you start? I said, I don't know, like maybe, in a couple of days. I said, how about tonight? Are you kidding me? No, we need to get going. We have this episode. And this was Nicole, kind of hurry up, get it done. So I talked to my agent, and I agreed to do it, and I didn't even really know what the show was. And all of a sudden, that evening, I was recording my first episode of Sailor Moon. It all happened like within 5 or 6 hours. It was wild. So I really appreciate that she put her trust in me, and I found it quite ironic that Tracy had covered for me with Care Bears years earlier, and then here I was covering for her in Sailor Moon, and I felt that I inherited a really wonderful opportunity that she had created. So for her work on the series, I'm really grateful. And then as many of you might know, 2 or 3 years later, after I'd done 100 episodes and 3 films, I believe, I was pregnant with my kids, twins, and pregnancy, I made the decision to step away from the role, because it's a very physical role. And I know that's hard to imagine when you think we're in a sound booth behind a microphone like this, but to me, Sailor Moon is running and jumping and saving the world and doing this, that, and eating crackers and doing this, that. And I kind of did it all. And as an actor, I would draw on my own physicality because I wanted the breathing to sound like I was really running and chasing the villains, and I wanted it to really sound like I was leaping. So I used to just jump around in the sound booth. I'm sure I drove the sound engineers out of their minds because I was all over the place. But to me, it was important to create the reality of what she was going through as much as possible. So with my pregnancy, I decided to let go of that. It was actually not a difficult decision at all because my kids are the most important people in my life. But I did let go of a job that I loved. I really loved Sailor Moon. And this was, we really realized what an impact it was kind of having in the social culture. So I feel really privileged to have been a part of it. I was sad to let it go. Linda Valentine, who then took over the role, I think did a great job. It's a tough gig when you're asked to recreate a role, sort of sound like the last person, but make it your own and make it interesting and give the producer and the director everything that they need to make it work. It's a tough gig, and I think she did really well with it. Many of you had the opportunity to meet her because I know you show up the posters with her name on it, and she's also a lovely person. So that's kind of my history up to 15 years ago with Sailor Moon. And then I would say I had a bit of a different frame of reference because, as some of you know, I went back to school a few years ago. So I'm studying gender, feminist, and women's studies at York University. And I started to think about Sailor Moon because I always liked the role because I thought she was this imperfect heroine and yet strong, and she developed over time. She became more aware of her strengths, and all of the obstacles that faced her were an opportunity for her to grow and develop her own identity and her own strengths. And I love that she worked with the other girls in a very collective way. It was a really unified force of young girls. And there were a couple of issues I had with the series, but as I mentioned before, they were minor quibbles. Because in the scheme of things, I thought she was a pretty cool central character, the propelling force of the story. And I felt very honored to be a part of the team that brought her to you. But when I went back to school, I was looking at Sailor Moon through a feminist lens, which is to say, what role does she play in our understanding of girls and women in our society? And what does this series say about gender, sexuality, race, culture, ability, age, all those things that can divide us in our lives if we see ourselves as different from other people, or can unify us if we embrace the differences. And I thought that Sailor Moon as a series did really well on a lot of those counts. I mean, there were these empowered little girls who, as I say, were imperfect and had these things to learn in life, and yet they drew on this inner strength and they went out and saved the world. I mean, I think that's a pretty powerful message for young people, boys and girls, and trans people, and identify as GLBTQ. I mean, there were just a lot of really positive messages in the show. The same-sex friendship, relationship, that was more implied in the North American version than in the Japanese version. But it seemed to open a lot of doors for conversation. And I think if it had been produced, well, there is a new version today, so we'll see where that goes. But I think if it had been written today, even 15, 20 years later, it might not have been as groundbreaking. So I think the fact that it tackled some of those issues is what made it special. So some people call Sailor I was kind of thrown into the hot water right away, that I probably wasn't thinking about the character as much as I usually would. I would usually take the time to break down the script and see the overall series and see where I fit in and think about, as I mentioned earlier, my super objective, the character, the thing that I want the most, and then the ways that I would get that thing, and I really just didn't have time to do that work. So I just kind of worked from my gut. And you know what, maybe that helps you sometimes, because as an actor, you're drawing on your own experience and your intuition, and that analysis of the text really helps me, but one of the other tools we use is our intuition and our gut, and that's really where Sailor Moon started with me. I was trying to sort of emulate Tracy's voice, but I can't entirely, and so I was trying to emulate her voice to a certain extent, but I was trying to find my own voice within it. And I think that if you listened carefully to the shows, maybe some of you can be more objective than me, I think that you would notice a bit of a progression in terms of how I sounded in the first few episodes, and then I started to really just feel like I was Sailor Moon to a certain extent. And one of the things that I think grew, and maybe you can give me some feedback, is I think that the humor that we found in the series grew as we went along, which I really liked. It was really important to me, because I think Sailor Moon, as I said, is imperfect, and so when she's klutzy and things are getting in her way and she's tripping and this and that, and she has all these vocalizations, I really had fun finding those, because when you have the opportunity to dub a series, it's not like you're in a studio where you're just looking at a script, original animation, and then you read the text or voice, and the animator's very creative. You can do all kinds of things. In dubbing, you are matching the image of the original production with the text underneath that sort of moves along on something called a rhythmoband, and you're trying to match the vowels and the consonants with the mouth of the character on the screen, and you're trying to think about what you want to do in the scene, and you're trying to create the vocalization that's realistic if she's jumping or moving or this and that. So you're doing a lot of things at once, and I really had fun finding the humor in those pratfalls and the visuals that I saw, because there I saw a little license to make it more my own. So a lot of those, oh, I said, we like for Scotch, what do you like that? Honey, will you sign up for me? Yes, Grandma, of course I will. So those were two indicators in my life, yeah. Yes.
So it's a bit random, but I am curious, what was it like recording the Sailor Moon segments that were done?
What the question is, what was it like recording the Sailor Moon sets? I have to admit, I kind of liked them. Because I didn't always agree with everything that was written, but I mostly did. So thematically, I thought, you know what, there's some really positive intentions behind these messages. And if it's going to young people, and if it at least prompts them to think about some of their life choices, or how they can find strengths within themselves, I think that's a good thing. Some people might say it was a little preachy, a little didactic, but I just went with it, partly because that was my job. And ultimately, I've got to tell you, one of the reasons I come to cons, and I don't go to too many because my life is very full and busy, privileged to do so. And I'll tell you why. Because I have conversations with many of you, and I've had previous conversations where people tell me that this series has profoundly affected their lives. And I've been privy to some very personal conversations. I'm very honored that people have shared some of their personal stories with me that they have. And I don't take much credit for my part in how this show might have changed their lives. I was a small cog in the wheel, a little bit of the team. But the fact that it has affected people so profoundly in so many ways and really helped people when they were in difficult circumstances in their lives, first of all surprised me and moved me beyond words, and then made me feel extra proud of my involvement in this series. So I think those Sailor Moon says they made you giggle. Okay, good. And they made you laugh. And laughter is a great medicine. There's somebody at the back there. Yes.
Do you still keep in touch with the other women that did play voices?
Do I keep in touch with the other women? I had the opportunity to see a few of them at conventions like this, and it's really fun when we're all together. Really enjoy them. They're just a group of talented people, not just the women, but the men too. Talented actors. Everybody was very dedicated to the show. Everybody put forth their best effort. And I'm really proud of this all-Canadian cast that put Canada voice actors on. Awesome. And, oh, do I have it here? I was gonna give a plug. I don't have it here. Oh, yes, I do. So speaking of guys and sisters, so Roland Parliament, director, has published this book called Sailor Moon Reflections. It's Friesen Press. And I'm telling you about this because he has asked a lot of our mutual friends to put little excerpts in here. So there's stories about the recording of the different sessions. I've written something for Roland in here, and he asked me to write the introduction, which I was honored to do. He put a lot of work into this, and Roland, to my mind, was a huge part of why this series is so successful. He lived and breathed this series for the first 100+ episodes that he directed. He worked very closely with Nicole Dwell, and he cared so deeply about this series, and a lot of that is reflected here, get the pun, in Sailor Moon Reflections. So anyway, I'm sure you can get this online, or probably Facebook, Roland, but if you're interested in these stories, I mean, there are more stories than I can share with you today, so it's just something to think about. Yes? Oh gosh, I'm going to decline because if you tell me one, I'll repeat it back to you. Sure, why don't I close with that? Okay? We'll come back to that. Excellent. Yes?
Well, at first I just wanted to say, I do have a question too, but I do want to say that Sailor Moon has a big impact on me, like just with friendship, power, everything like that, I really got a Sailor Moon tattoo. Wow! Yeah.
That's quite a commitment. A Sailor Moon tattoo at the back of her account.
My question is what were the few things you didn't like about the series?
Question is, what are the few things I didn't like about the series? I think I said in an earlier seminar, and I just want to preface this, so especially for those of you who are recording, that I have great respect for the creator of this series, and as I said, and I have no idea what restrictions were placed on her in terms of the options for storytelling. But something that I noticed is that these 14-year-old girls were all very sexualized, with the short skirts and so on, and I wondered if that was necessary. And the second thing I would say is I didn't notice a lot of cultural diversity. So for a series that originated in Japan, there were a lot of Caucasians in the show, and I suspect a lot of that had to do with marketing and where they thought their audience was, but I was a little sad about that. I thought there was a missed opportunity for diversity in terms of culture, race, as I said before, gender, different genders along the spectrum, ability, age.
So there's always room for improvement. So as I say, I think those are minor quibbles in the scheme of things, because I think it was written, if it was written today, they might have addressed those concerns. Yeah, thanks. Yes?
What's your favorite line in Sailor Moon?
Favorite line in Sailor Moon. One thing that I often write on posters and so on is, okay, I'll do this. Moon healing activation! I think it's my favorite because it sort of draws us all into this circle of collective healing and wisdom and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. Yes.
Do you recall what the schedule of the turnaround was from production to broadcast?
Turnaround from production to broadcast. I can't honestly tell you what it was. I can tell you that we were churning them out very quickly, and on my busiest day, 4 episodes in one day, and that was a really demanding day. And I can only imagine that Nicole really had to churn it up and get it back for final editing and so on in a hurry. But I can't give you a timeline, sorry. Is there somebody back there with a question? Yes?
What was in the one-day session more emotionally impactful episodes for you?
What was, sorry, one of the sessions are more emotionally impactful?
Yeah, one of the more emotional episodes. What was that like for you to make it one day or a couple hours?
What was it like doing it in one day or a couple of hours? Well, I'll share a couple of thoughts. One is that I was often in the studio on my own. I don't mean there wasn't anybody else working with me. I mean there weren't other actors on my side of the glass. Because Sailor Moon had a lot of monologues and a lot of lines, and when a producer is trying to allocate time and considering budget hours, they don't want to bring everything because it costs too much. So often they would have me in for, usually the slot is about 4 hours, but we would do it in less often for me, and we just get all my lines down. So if it was an emotional scene, I'm really imagining that my scene partner is there with me, tuxedo mask or Rainier, whomever, and I'm imagining how they would say those lines back to me. So it's sort of a fabricated emotion, which gets into a lot of acting technique and method and imagining myself being realistic under imaginary circumstances and that kind of thing. So I would, as much as I could, create truthful, emotional circumstances. And in answer to your question, it's exhausting. It's really tiring. If you really want to do your best, like any job, I'm sure, with all of you, if you put your 100% into what you're doing, at the end of the day, it's really tiring. And yet, the other example I'll give, so there was an episode that I referred to, and I wish I could tell you what episode it is, and I don't know, but we recorded it one day with Roland Parliament, Saul Trapani was the engineer of this one, I believe, and Nicole Twalt. So it was the 4 of us, I was behind the glass, and it was one of the episodes where Sailor Moon has, I'm going to say 90% of the text to say. So, and it was also one that was a very fluid script. At any rate, we recorded that episode in one take without stopping. That's pretty unusual. I've never done it before. I've never done it since. Roland tells me he's never directed a recording session where that's happened before, but everything worked. And it wasn't just me. It was, one of those moments where you feel it's really working for me. But it was also Roland behind the glass with his gesticulation, kind of going, giving me direction with his hands, but not speaking to me because I was kind of on a roll. And it was Saul Trapani on the board, kind of doing, increasing the volume, decreasing the volume, and really kind of working with me. So it was, and then there's Nicole probably whispering stuff into Roland's ear, which he would convey to me through his gestures. And it was like we were this little mini orchestra working together, and we didn't stop. We didn't stop to converse or talk about what we were doing. It just worked. So there was the script, there were the images, it was a good translation, and helpful direction, and helpful engineering, and feeling really good about where it was going. And honestly, that was invigorating, and we all talk about that day. To this day, 15 years later, that was really inspiring. So, an emotional episode, but as a craftsperson, really rewarding. And most probably one of the emotional episodes because we weren't stopping and starting, it was just continuous. Yes, any other questions? Yes? When did we record the movies? I'm going to say later in my term of being Sailor Moon, but I can't tell you exactly when. Like, they weren't the first year, year and a half. But I think they were kind of interspersed with some of the episodes. Yes? My favorite episode. I have to say that one I just described. Now, it would be really nice if I could tell you the title. I can't. But you know what? If you watch an episode and it sort of fits that description, maybe find me on Twitter or Facebook, let me know and say, I think it was probably this episode. Yes?
Actually, there's an interview for Anime Network. You talk about that. And it's actually my favorite episode of the Torrance series.
Say it again?
Crystal Clear Destiny.
A Personal Clear Destiny. Oh, yes, A Crystal Clear Destiny. One of you brought that tape to me today, I think. So that's the one that Roland said was that day?
Yeah.
That magical day, A Crystal Clear Destiny. It kind of worked. Thank you so much for that. There you go. I'm going to have to track that down now. Masha, thank you so much. Anybody at the back there? I can see. Yes. Have I heard the new voices? I haven't. But I talked to someone today who heard them and thought they were pretty darn good. Can I hear some feedback? Has anybody else heard them? They're very good. Excellent. That's very diplomatic. Solid production, pros and cons. Well, it is. It's different, right? But that's great. Change is good sometimes. Things will come out of that. Yes. Do I wish that I'd been asked to come back? If I'd been asked to come back, I would have been honored, and I probably would have created a space in my life to do so because I'm so fond of this series. But I'm not completely disheartened that I wasn't asked back because my colleagues were a huge part of that experience. And it was such a team effort. It was kind of a magical time. As we kind of mentioned, we didn't really know what it was when we were doing it. And then the fact that it captured the zeitgeist after we had poured our heart and souls into it was really special and rewarding. And sometimes those things are hard to recapture. So, yes and no, like many things in life. Yes? So the question is, did I have a chance to improvise and just create things in terms of the script while we're recording? Not really, because the translation would be approved by a group of people and you have to stick to it. But where I found my improvisation was, as I say, in those vocal mannerisms and in the interpretation of the lines. So,
Welcome to Planet Beats Pro.